Hi, this is Guyleen, and welcome to Colorful Stitches Design Studio. Yeah, I'm having a great time. Yes, yes, yes. Isn't it fun? So, what are we going to do today? This is just to see what we feel like doing. Anyway, I was making a block called Contrary Wife. How cool is that? Isn't that neat? Look, it uses a plaid, which I think is, I don't know, I've been getting into plaids lately. This fabric line is from QT Fabrics or Quilting Treasures fabric line, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm using, I don't know, some 10 or 11 colors of it. But I just want to just make the block with you really quickly and give it a go, right? Just give it a go. I'm going to crank up my sound a bit and see if that helps. Okay. Now, if you have comments, just put them in the chat or send them somewhere, and we will get back to them later. And I'm going to tilt a little bit, move forward, play around with my camera. This is what I do. At least I'm not playing around with the lighting, which is my other normal, is to play around with my lighting. Okay, so we're gonna make a block really, really quick here. And I'm gonna go through some sashing. I'm gonna talk about, what we got going and see where we want to take it from there. What I did notice is on my sewing machine that my machine sounded really harsh. And I think I need to change my needle. So I thought, but maybe let's sew a little bit and you can hear maybe what I'm hearing and see what you think. Now, generally I am a pinner. But these, I don't know, it's short enough and we'll see. I'm not going to pin and I'm not even going to press. How's that? We're going to live on the edge of these very quick blocks and you're going to just see me so live, but I just think that sounds clunky to me. But maybe it doesn't to you. You tell me whether that sounds like my machine is running hard. There's two fixes I've noticed for that. One is change the needle. The other one is oil the machine. So I am not sure whether which one needs to be done, but it's easier probably to change my needle. I don't know the last time I did change the needle, so that would be it. Now, when I make these half square triangles, I am chain stitching them. I cut them using the angle trim tool. So it's one of my tools. You could get it from my website and it says angle trim on it. There you go. You can see it. So it's a cool little triangle. And you'll think, oh, why, Guyleen? Why do I need that? Because it looks just like the other triangles I have. And it could, but it acts differently. It really only has the lines on it that quilters use the most or make the most. So that's for a 2-inch finish, half square triangle, 3-inch finish, half square triangle, 4-inch finish, and 6-inch finish. Just because a tool has a lot of markings on it doesn't make it efficient. It really just sets you up for more places to make an error, to be honest. So this is kind of cool because if your squares are cut 3.5 inches by 3.5, then you can use the same strip to cut half square triangles because one tip is kind of truncated. All right. So I went ahead and I sewed 4 half square triangles. Now what I do is I press. I don't really press to the dark or to the light. I press for the efficiency of stitching the block because I'm trying to get perfection from the front. And it may not be true perfection, but it's going to look like perfection. I really try not to stress when I stitch. This is my happy space, so I kind of like let it rip, to be honest. And I finger press, as you can see, very, very liberally. And I have a half square triangle in there, so I'm going to send another one through, just so I can keep the chain going. I mean, I act like thread is like super, super expensive, but eh, everything's getting costly now, so it's really hard to say. All right, after I bring this through, I'm going to stop a bit, and I'm going to change that needle. And I'm going to use a Schmetz Micro Tex needle, a sharp, and this is a 7010. And I don't know, it's my needle of choice, to be honest. If I can get the pack open, they make the pack so hard. Now, what do I do with these needles that aren't really broke or bent, but maybe just worn out, because you can wear out the shaft? I keep them and I use them to hang up stuff on the wall, really, because sometimes it's a little piece of art that's very lightweight and you could just stick the pin in there and it's just enough to hold it at an angle. You can also use it for straight pins on your design wall. And that's kind of how I get rid of mine. If you throw it in the trash, I usually kind of put it with some fabric or put it in a container so nobody gets poked with it. All right, my needle is officially in, and now I have to rethread. I am using 60 weight thread. It's Quilter Select. That's my thread of choice. Now, let's try more triangles, right? Let's see if that was my ticket here. I'm not sure it is, but I'll tell you in a minute. Oh, it sounds a little bit better to me. You think it's my imagination? Yeah, it's not as harsh. I think that needle was a little bit dull. Sometimes when you're stitching batiks, you can really dull your needle faster than you think. All right, I think I have enough pieces that I can do the next level. So what I really like to do is call make the pattern. And what does that mean? That means on my sewing machine bed, I actually lay out the whole block. So I'm going to tip and move my camera just a bit and see if I can tip down. Yeah, you could see me. You could see me. Well, we're playing with this. So I usually have a little design wall that I could kind of hold up. So you may have to trust me today on this. So I'm just going to set up my block of make the picture is what I call it. And I am dyslexic, just in case you didn't know that or you need to know that. So I must set up the block, because if I don't, it's just not going to happen. Isn't this a cool piece of fabric? I'm not into fussy cutting. I don't mind it. I just don't personally do it. I think some of you can really, or you're really good at it. Let's just start there. You're really good at it. So I set up my whole block and it's built like a 9 patch, right? Because this is the block I'm making, right? This one. Isn't that gorgeous? So it's set up like a 9 patch. So 3 against 3. And I sew them in rows. So I'm putting the rows together. Now I like to start and end evenly. And I just think, because I don't like squaring up. It just, no, let's just sew it as good as best we can from the get-go. So I'm just flipping and doing the first seam on each row. I do cut them apart. I know there's a method where you don't cut them apart and then you can sew row to row. I don't do that. I'm not sure why. I'm not even sure I ever tried it. I just know it's a technique that some people do, and it's just not one of mine, one of the things I do. And quilters, everybody has their own habits, good or bad. And, every time you see somebody do something, you just decide whether that's a technique you want to add to your wheelhouse or not, or a process. And, you know, you make a decision from there. Now, I came to the end, so I am going to send in another triangle. Now, Bonnie Hunter made this kind of popular, leaders and enders. That's her coined name for sending things through. And she usually sends stuff through that has nothing to do with the project she's making. But I like to send stuff through that actually is the project so I can finish the project a little faster. All right, I just cut them apart. Now, when I get to this level, I'm going to press to the square. And like I said, I finger press. I will do this whole block without getting up to hit an iron. So I'm going to finger press to the square. And again, why am I doing that? Well, I'm going to do that so that the points on the half square triangle stay as pointy as possible. Sometimes, it doesn't happen that way, but we're going to be good. All right, so I'm setting up my next row, or the last square, to make the rows on all 3 rows. And then you're going to eventually sew row to row. And when I get to the row to row setting, I will use straight pins. Yeah, because I like my intersections dead on, spot on. That's a better word. Dead on sounds very violent for quilting, doesn't it? Spot on. So to do it spot on, I think you need pins. Some people are really good at holding it. I don't know how they do it. They have miracle fingers or something. I don't. So anyway, so that's that. And I don't know. I'm just stitching away at this. I have to make the full quilt. So eventually all blocks will be made. The quilt will have 25 blocks in it. So I just finished the row. And now I'm going to sew row to row after I finger press those seams. Now you could use a little roller device. They have lots of devices for finger pressing. And I own them all. I just tend to use my finger and see how it is. See how it is. And I've got my infamous pins in here. And when I'm not chatting with you guys, I can sew a little faster, but I'm going slow. I don't want to make a mistake. Not that that's earth shattering. It just means I have to get my seam ripper out, unscheduled seam ripper out. Scheduled means I'm doing a butterfly seam or something where you have to take stitches out intentionally. Wow, that was a big noise that happened in my ear. Did you guys hear that too? I don't know what that noise was, but I have ear things in, and it was relatively loud in my ear. Don't know. It's all amazing to me. Totally amazing. So I'm just stitching away. All right. So I got the first set done. Look at that. It's coming together. Now, I am going to press away from the middle row because I have 3 rows. So the first row seam, I'm going to press, let's call it up, 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 up. And then the second row seam, I'm going to press down, which does what? It gets me so you end up pressing away from your center row. Both seams are pressed away. And that's, it just gives you much flatter piecing from block to block. to be honest. That's why you do it. And I like my intersections pretty flat. I mean, I'm going through the pain of putting in pins. Now, I use these ultra fine patchwork pins so I can drive over my pins. I don't tend to go over the pin at warp speed, so I do slow down, but I do drive over them. And that's a personal preference, whether you feel comfortable doing that or not. It's up to you. Yay. And guess what? Block is done. How fast was that? Contrary Wife is the name of the block. And it was first published in Kansas City Star in 1941. And there she is. Contrary Wife. Look at that. It just came off very nice. I don't know what happened there. Now, also what I'm going to do is for my blocks, I'm putting sashing between the blocks. So, and this is the sashing. It's like a sagey color. And I usually stitch, if I'm using sashing, this is like a 2-inch cut. I put my sashing on top. So the block's on the bottom, sashing's on top. And I get it going. And then I kind of scoosh it and line up the end. And then I put a pin on the end. You could do that before it goes under your needle. I tend not to, but. And then I kind of can hold it midway. Now, I definitely pressed after I completed the whole block before I went into the sashing mode. So you could do that if you want. And I definitely would continue to chain. I'm not going to do it right now, but I would continue to chain piece this because you can. It makes it a little squirrely. So you do whatever your comfort zone is. And I will show you a trick as soon as I sew this seam. And I think you'll like it, the trick. Well, the trick wasn't how to make your thread come out of your needle. So what I'm going to do, because I'm kind of playing around with this format of this live, and I have to make this quilt. So I think to keep it short and sweet, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do different segments of it on a live, perhaps, or maybe record it. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm going to do segments, so you'll see a lot of this coming together and kind of follow along. This is Guyleen's like reality TV, except for you're in my studio. And you can, of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then you get notifications of when I'm going to go live. I'll try to post them so they're scheduled, give you a little heads up. And you can also subscribe to my newsletter by going to my online store or going to my website and then to the online store. You can get all of that. And that way you don't miss anything. And you don't miss the upcoming workshops that's coming this summer. Look at that. Isn't that nice? Beautiful. Now, I didn't press the sashing, right? So we're going to press the sashing, each seam towards the sashing. I usually will finger press this, especially because this is only a 9.5-inch block, and get it going. And then when I get the whole row, and there's 5 blocks in a row, then I will come back. But I think that looks marvelous, marvelous, marvelous. I think, isn't this an interesting color? It's kind of, I don't know, it's an off-color gold with a green brown undertone to it. This is a lovely, this fabric line is called Windsor Court, if you needed to know that. But I think it's really, really cool. and more to come. More to come. Thank you for joining me. Yay. Hope you have a wonderful remaining day. I will give you a chat later. Okay? All right. Bye. See you later, guys. Bye bye. Well, oh, I had two people watching. I don't know how to stop this. Does anybody know how to stop this? I don't know. Maybe if I click that, that will stop it. I see my edit button, but I don't see stop. All right. Well, I may actually be streaming for the next decade if I can't find the stop button, right? Here, let's send up some hearts just because you should always have self love. All right. I have no idea. That was the good thing. How to stop it. All right. Oh, in stream. I see it. Bye.